Welcome back. My name is Gabriel with Matt Out. I'm Gabriel, and today we're going to be building this awesome garden with mesh and doors and, a whole bunch of like bells and whistles and, rounded off corners and stuff. So, yeah, if you want to know how to build this, I guess you can watch this and I'll show you. The very first thing that I did was the half flaps for the triangles on the side. This is going to be a 1x1 frame for this the triangles, and the magic angle, if you're wondering, for like a triangle where all the sides equal. There's a word for that. I just escaped my mind. Never use it, so don't know where it is right now. So bear with me. The magic angle is 30 degrees. So I went to my chop saw, cut a piece of scrap to like 30 degrees, and I brought it to my table saw and set up my miter gauge to that same thing. Screwed on a piece of scrap wood onto my miter gauge, and I used that as a sacrificial fence. So basically giving me a zero clearance in the back, so less tearing chances. If you don't have a dado blade, don't sweat it. You can get something like this. This is just a dedicated rip blade. It has flat teeth on it. Some people might call this like a joiner blade or something like that because it has flat teeth and leaves like a flat behind it. So square edges and stuff like that. But it's just a dedicated rip blade. This thing has, as you can see, super aggressive. It works great. Been using it for years to do this kind of stuff. Now, putting the triangle side together, I decided to just put a screw in each joint with a little bit of glue, of course. And I'm going to use clamps to just make sure it's nice and tight and everything like that. And well, that's set overnight. I did the same thing for the doors. I just don't want to repeat myself over and over again, show the same clips 20,000 times. So this is the next day, and what I did here is put up the mesh that goes inside the triangle to stop the birds and raccoons and alligators from going inside your garden and eating everything in there. So the mesh is pretty simple. It's a steel mesh that I got on Amazon. I think it's like a a half-inch squares or something like that. It'll stop rodents from going in there. That's the important part of it. So yeah, I just put staples around it and cut it off with a side cutter. Got bored actually of using the side cutter, as you can see here, and I decided to go and find my cutting tool, and yeah, use a cutting tool if you have one. A lot faster, a lot less frustrating too. This is the important thing. I banged the mesh inside the wood. So I have an imprint of the mesh inside the wood. So once everything is in there, it's not going to move around, right? It's going to be imprinted into wood. It's going to be part of the actual frame of this garden. And then I put the outside edges on it. The outside edges are just, you know, strips of 1x6 I cut to like 2.5 inches, something like that. And I just, you know, glued it together with a couple of screws in the back. Super easy, nothing to be concerned about. Next up, I decided to build the actual garden that goes underneath there. Now, the corners I basically just glued up with tape. If you want to know how to do that, I guess I can do a video on that. Just leave comments in the description. The more comments I get for that, I'll do a dedicated video on how to do that if you need to do that. So I did the corners, cut them to size. So I need to rip the size to, I don't remember what it was, probably somewhere around 3 inches or 2.75, basically the widest I can get it. Sand everything down and round out the corners. Did the same for the sides, and then I just, you know, glued everything together, made sure it was nice and square, and let that dry overnight. The top edges, I secured them by using strips. So instead of having pocket screws that probably won't look nice and probably would help the dirt to go in there and screw everything, I decided just go ahead and put like a 1x1 strip on the inside of the garden. Next up is to put the mortises for the hinges for the doors on this. But before I do that, I want to take a look at the 3D render that I did for this project. Now the files for this is going to be available on my Patreon page, along with some measured diagram for all the pieces that are available on here. So go over there and check those out. I need a pencil. Pencil's inside of there. I hate when that happens. All right, I'm gonna get another one. All right, so what I did is I extended this line on the top. All I did was just, you know, with a combination square, and I put the line through it. What I'm gonna be using is this jig over here. It's just something I made out of scrap pieces of wood. There's a center line over here that maybe you can't see it, but I can feel it, no problem. That's going to align with this line right there. In the back, we put some biscuits. These things right here, we use for biscuit jointer in the back, and a couple of layers of tape just to make that thickness that we need for properly adjusting to the hinge itself. So now we're just going to clamp that down. Bear with me. And it's a little bit rounded off because we're using a router, and our hinge is squared off. So our hinge itself is squared off. So what we need to do is square off the the back edges of these, and then a little bit at the front too, just clean it up a little bit. So what I like to do is start with the back and just follow the back edge with the blade of your chisel and parry down to try and find where it's going to meet the back edge. Like that. And then we're going to do the same thing with the front. To square off this hinge. Now we're going to use the bevel down. I'm just going to go ahead and push this to cut the underneath of this. Now we don't want to lift up on your chisel when you're done. You don't want to pop it off this way. You really want to pop it off with the chisel going vertical. So chisel going vertical. So the bevel in the front of it. And should just chop right off. Like that. You never pry this way because you got chances of being able to lift up the edge of this piece of wood. Now we're going to try the hinge out. So the hinge is a little bit fatter than the mortise itself. We're talking about like a 1/16 of an inch maybe. 32nd of an inch, like a millimeter. So what we're going to do is go chew off a little bit on both sides with the chisel. Again, same thing. And you want to take the excess off with your chisel on vertical, like that. Then that's your hinge, and it fits in there super snug. I'll show it to you closer up. And what we have is a nice clean mortise. This is a hinge I'm putting in, and what this is going to do is going to center the hole inside of these holes. Makes it easier for hinges and stuff like that, especially. There you go. When my holes are nice and centered, I can go ahead and put it on the doors. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to put the hinge itself on the door, and then, because I find it easier to put the hinge on the door than on the thing I'm going to be screwing onto. Just my preference. really, really, really sweet. I enjoyed making this project. If you enjoyed it as well, go ahead and check other of my videos. I have tons of them. Not really, but I'm going to have more. So subscribe and like and leave me a comment about everything I did wrong. See you next time.